Welcome to the Yes to Entrepreneurship podcast. So, real quick, before I jump into the conversation with this week's guest, I just want to let you know what this show's about. Really, this show is just about all the conversations we, entrepreneurs, those of us who are the why notters, have around entrepreneurship. It's the conversation that you don't typically hear because you just see those fun posts on Instagram and Facebook where we're hanging out on yachts or we're making a ton of money and driving these fancy cars, when reality is that's not real life. Real life is trying to figure out how you're going to pay bills, trying to figure out if you're going to make rent this month, trying to figure out if that new client really is going to help move you forward or if they're really going to bring you down. Really, anything goes in these conversations. And you, the listener, gets to eavesdrop in on these conversations that I'm having with fellow entrepreneurs. So grab your cup of coffee, grab your water, grab your tea, whatever it is that you enjoy, and a pen and paper because you're about to take some notes. Also, be sure to share this out. Oh, here comes my guest. Talk to you soon. Quick shout out to our sponsor, StupidEasy.com. StupidEasy.com is a new online course platform where you can easily upload and sell your online courses without having to be tech savvy and without them taking a cut of your sales. Discover more at StupidEasy.com, and we'll have a link in the show notes for you. Tell me a little bit about yourself, because I know that I see you online here and there in a couple groups. I think we're in a couple groups together on the Facebook. And this is my chance to actually really be able to sit down and hang out with you for
Right.
and be able to get to know you a little bit better.
Right. Well, I think that we met in Leah Kalmakis' group in Freelance to Freedom.
Yeah.
That whole community is such a big part of how I got here. It was where honestly a ton of my early clients was from meeting people in that group. I think what Leah has cultivated there is really interesting because it's kind of for people that are still on the newer journey, the early side of the journey, but there's a group of people there that really are like, okay, I want to make this a business.
Yeah.
And I do everything up and up, it's like all the policies and the taxes and the email, everybody's doing everything with best practices. And it's just a really great, think tank of people. But I think that's where we met. Her classes in the beginning about designing your customer experience is a huge part of why some of my first clients that I onboarded through her process are still clients today, 4 years later.
Wow.
Because it's just gone really well. Working with me has gone really well. And I mean, obviously I had to do the work, but they were impressed from day one because of what she put into place. So I cannot sing her praises enough, but, in general, what I do, I started as just sort of selling, my skills to local nonprofits. I worked in nonprofit and I was doing communications and kind of some, marketing stuff, social media management and email marketing, kind of grassroots sort of stuff. Everybody pitches in, all hands on deck,
Yeah.
And I thought, man, I would really like to to run a business. My parents did not have typical 9-to-5 schedules. And so that always appealed to me. And I just started throwing the bread out on the water, and Leah gave me a framework to run in. And so I started as a VA, social media management, kind of admin VA stuff. These days I am full-time in my business. Well, I keep part-time hours because I have a kid, but
Sure.
I'm completely self-employed. And I focus mainly on email marketing these days. So it really has just evolved into, I kind of did whatever I could to get some clients and get my feet wet to I do whatever the hell I want now,
Yeah. And
it's really cool.
That's you bring up some great points there. One is the power of a Facebook group. I mean, it's just amazing, because before I started my business, I was on Facebook, but it was for friends and family and posting pictures and seeing, what people are up to. And now after starting my business, it's like, there's all these groups that I'm in, and I've met amazing people who have become clients, close friends, resources that are just so valuable. And it's crazy to think about how it's evolved over time.
I know sometimes I go down the scary rabbit hole of, I'm a type A person, so I tend to kind of go down the rabbit hole of like everything, like what's the worst case scenario? But I think like, man, how would I have started a business without that community there? And then I think, well, I just would have found, where everybody else was hanging out otherwise, but it's just such an interesting like time in history. It really is, because you just, wake up and say, I'm going to go start a business. Okay, cool. And kind of the infrastructure is like there. I mean, it takes a lot of hard work, and that.
Yep.
It takes a lot of, self-awareness of what services I'm good at and where I can tighten up, customer experience and those things. But you can just like wake up in the morning and be like, yeah, it sounds good, I'll start a business.
Yeah. And you know what I love about what you keep bringing up so early on is the customer experience, because that's what I'm all about. And how you started with the admin with a VA, but you started like we all do as an entrepreneur, we all start this way, is we try to do whatever we can just to get the work and just to get the clients. And then over time, we realize, at least we all hope we realize, that we start narrowing it down and start getting into a focus, a niche area that you really can hone in on.
Yeah. And it doesn't have to be dramatic. Like this is not going to sit well with you, but I hate WordPress. Can't stand the dashboard. Like it stresses me out. I use Squarespace on my own. It's like not my passion. So that was the first thing I did, was just, I had a couple of clients first year in business, and I was just miserable. And that was the first thing I did, was have the courage to say on my services page, no WordPress, here's who I recommend for that,
Yeah.
And just that little step, honestly, I had people fill out my hire form just to tell me off that I wasn't offering it.
Sure.
Like, I mean, it was a little dicey there in the beginning, but then I think, well, I don't want to work with somebody that thinks they can yell at me anyway.
Exactly.
So I have found, I wouldn't even though I hear people say niche, I wouldn't even have said that in the beginning. I just would have said, don't do things I don't want to do. I don't know if I'm a spoiled brat or what, but it also kind of weeded out. I think as you start to say, like, these are the kinds of things that don't fill me with joy, you realize there's probably other reasons. The type of person who needs certain things, might not be the person that you feel jazzed working with. I think sometimes that tends to happen. Like, you learn more about it, like, holistically, when you just sort of say, okay, I'm going to pause on this path. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, definitely. No. And you nailed it right there, because of the fact, like, I mean, one, so powerful, the fact that you took it upon yourself to say, no, but here's a resource. And I'm huge on that, because, and I've shocked some clients before, because they've wanted to work with me. And even though I could have done it, for example, there was a client who wanted website help, which I'm not a coder, but I love helping with websites, especially WordPress. And with the right tools, I can make it work, and I can make people actually be okay with it, maybe even love it, but that's a stretch. And when it came down to this website, though, that the client wanted, they wanted this big e-commerce part, so a shopping on there. And that is totally outside of my zone. Like, I can do some good workarounds for digital products, but what they needed was a full-on expert on e-market, or shopping carts.
E-commerce,
e-commerce. And so I told them, I said, I would love to work with you, but I'm going to have to refer you to so and so, because that is their specialty, and that's a better choice for both of you. And at first she was a little shocked and was kind of like, wait, what's wrong with this person? Like, why are you pushing me to somebody else? And it was like, no, that's totally not, what it was. I'm doing you a favor to make sure you get in the right hands, because people are used to others referring them.
I know it.
It's kind of weird to say that, but it's true. And so afterwards, she was so impressed after our phone call and was in love with the recommendation that I gave her and gave me a great review. And it was so nice. And it's such a great example of, the power of being able to refer and being okay with, what, I have to say no to this, but here's a resource for you, versus just saying, no, I can't help you.
I know, a couple months ago, Seth Godin, I didn't know this. He came and did a talk I live in Buffalo, New York, and he came here. I didn't know that he was from here. He went to high school here and everything. And so he came back as, a favor to some family or something, but he did this talk. And so of course, I got like my seat and I'm ready to go and everything. And he totally wowed me, because he said in that having a good customer experience is a form of empathy. Yes. That when you think about customers are people, and you think about doing the best thing for them, and you think about, I get back to them in a certain amount of time because that's how I would want to be treated. And I had never thought about it like that. I felt in tune with the idea of wanting a good customer experience, but I think the people that know me the best would describe me as like painfully honest.
Yeah.
to like a fault, because I cannot, it's just something about me. I can't like deal. And, if everybody kind of like doesn't know my cards on the table, and so I never, like take on a job if I don't feel 100% comfortable, just like you're saying, and it actually, in the end, even though sometimes it doesn't feel great in the moment, it's the most empathetic option. And it is the option that gets people. I have clients a lot, just like what you're saying, like they leave you a review, they send people back to you. And I'll have people that come to me and say, so-and-so sent me here because I just need like an honest answer. Yes. I don't know like what the decision is, and can you help me come to a decision? And sometimes I will jump on the phone, sometimes I charge, sometimes I don't, depending on, what that looks like.
Yep.
But it's just about remembering, like, we're all people just trying to live life.
Exactly. And that's the key right there, is talking to people, talking as if you're talking to people, whether you're online or in person. We're all people, and we want to just know the truth, because there's so much out there, especially with social media and online. There's so much out there that's not giving us the full details, and that's not showing us the real stuff. And that's why people are naturally attracted to those who are telling them the real thing. Even if it hurts a little bit, they still need to know it.
I don't know. I was on the phone with a client today, and I was like, listen, at the risk of being too forward, I got to tell you what I think. Because it was decision time, and I was like, I don't know if sorry, I hear my kid out there, if you can hear yelling, but I was like, I don't know if this is what you want to hear, but I have to tell you this because this is what's best for you, and that's why you pay me. I find myself saying that often, because of like that. I can't sit on this information. I think I do sort of feel very comfortable, whatever your thing is, whoever you are, right? You're like, websites made stupid easy and all that stuff. Like whatever your thing is, I feel terribly comfortable kind of sitting in the seat of, two entrepreneurs are off to the side talking, mostly in my case, women entrepreneurs. They feel stuck, and one of them says, just go ask her, she'll tell you. Yep. I feel comfortable being like the compass of like, hey, I don't really know, but kind of here's the best practice, and go check out this person, right? Go to, go do this free HubSpot class, whatever it is, saying go, this is what is out there. I just think it's fun to talk about business,
Me too. Yeah. That's why we get along so well. And because you're a New Yorker. So
where are you again?
I'm in California, but I always tell people I have an East Coast heart. Like, I love New York, and I get, every time when I used to work at Apple, I used to get all the New Yorkers, and we'd hang out for, a half hour just talking and hanging.
Right.
while I'm trying to sell them a phone.
That is so funny.
It was a blast, and it's always like that. So it's fun. And, that's the thing. I just had a meeting myself with a marketing advisor from the Small Business Development Center.
Uh-huh.
And such an amazing resource, and they're free and they're all over the place. And
yeah.
It was fantastic because we hung out for a good hour and a half talking, not just about specific marketing for Stupid Easy, but just talking about business in general. And, our likes and dislikes for how things work. And we talked about, when working with a client sometimes that, they come to us because we're the expert and they're paying for us to deliver something. But then there's those times when they don't want to hear what we have to say. And it's hard to get them to convince them that it's the right thing, whether it's a copy edit or a change on the website or, fixing the product or actually speaking to the person as if they're a person versus just having,
right,
a bot or something. Like it's these little things that, that really do make a difference. And so we would just have this great conversation, and then it developed into, other things about business and workshops, and maybe having me do some workshops in the local area. So it was just so much fun. And that's just like, it takes me to the next level because it's just, you're not getting paid for it. You're just enjoying having that conversation and educating people on business.
And like the money would come, right? You would meet someone who knows someone who needs you. And, I think a couple things as I hear you say that. I always, anytime people say like, how did you do that? Just go start a business, right? Like people in like my personal life. I think I always have to come back to insight and self-awareness, because if you don't know something, you have to want to go learn it. Like there's a difference. I think a lot of people, there's a low barrier to entry, I think, in our space for the most part. And so people kind of jump in, which thank God, because it's how I got started. But, people jump in and it's kind of like, I want to work it from home, which, I mean, hello, I'm raising my hand, like, pajamas, coffee, like no big deal, right? I'm on that train. But there has to be some level of like, I just want to talk about this stuff more. For me, I have, I have a master's, and I was, kind of like mid-level at nonprofits running stuff. And, I like had this thing I was doing that was not necessarily associated with what I'm doing now, but I switched to a new role at a different nonprofit, and I was kind of like, it was bigger. So I was overseeing people doing the social media posts, overseeing like the content other people were creating it. And I was, talking to them about how instead of doing. And so that was one of the things, was like, I kind of just miss that. I'm not ready for that to like not be a part of my life.
Right.
And that's sort of how I got started, was like a love of storytelling and testing what lands with people and communicating a mission. And like, that will always be my roots. And that's how you're successful, if you just like what you're doing. I also happen to like get to lay in bed till time with my baby, so I mean, that's pretty cool too. But I think it's just, you have to go back to like why, and so for you, wanting to talk about these concepts is the key to longevity, I think.
And it's so true. And that's the beauty of this, because it is hard. I mean, you might have seen posts last week, but last week it was just like, there's those times where you just want to curl up, hide underneath the covers and say, I can't do this anymore. Or I just am not motivated right now to do this. And, for me, even to say that at those times is hard, because I've always had this like extreme level of energy and wanting to talk about business till the end of the world. And for me to be down and out like that, it takes a toll on me. And then I remember it's going to pass. And thankfully I have these communities online, these Facebook groups, and people that I connect with that get it, that will help bring me up, because I've brought them up. And it's this whole teamwork equals success that I always talk about. And and it's a beautiful thing, because we all know something, and we all have our own journeys, and we know what has worked for us and what we know what hasn't worked for us. And by sharing that and connecting more with people, we all work together and understand, because certain things that worked for you may not work for me, but if I know a little bit about that, it might spark something else.
Yeah. Yeah. I think in those moments, the biggest thing for me is like answering without judgment, but with help.
Yes.
You know, because I think sometimes you'll find yourself masterminding with people that will say, well, you should have done this.
Right.
And that's not super helpful in that time, even though, like, I think there is a time for that reflection and that self-awareness again, but that happens like after you kind of wallow for a second.
Yep.
And for me, like, I hear you. This last week, you know, it's just that thing, like it ebbs and it flows, and that you have 3 clients at once who, you know, like come out of the woodwork, and it, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yep.
Everything kind of happens in stages, I think sometimes. I don't know why. But I could have a few reasons if I thought about it, I guess. A few hypotheses. But I think it's getting easier. Like the longer I do this, they're not, I don't fall as far when I like fall into the, you know, the entrepreneur pit of sadness, the wallow pool or something. It's not as deep, but it's still, you know, it happens.
Oh yeah. And
everything is so intensely personal, and you know, you're so in it that it's just hard sometimes.
Well, yeah. And remind me, how long have you been doing your current business?
Yeah, I've been full-time for about 2.5 years. Before that, about 2 years, you know, freelancing, nights, weekends kind of thing. So 4 years-ish.
Okay. And how do you manage like your projects? Like, what are you using, a project management system, or?
It's my favorite thing to talk about.
I love it.
So I recently, last July, I found a new tool. I was looking for this one thing to solve my problem, and I found a Zendu, which no one ever talks about.
I don't think I know that one.
I know. The interface looks a lot like Asana, and it's just like this a bunch of French people sitting in a room, like these guys and gals that like built this really cool tool. And it's supposed to be from A to Z. It like gives you Zen or something. I jumped on the phone once, and I was like, what is this name? A Zendu, DOO. But I was on Asana, and, you know, I had all my clients in there in different workspaces or whatever. And after I had a baby, my brain went mushy. And like, I didn't really think that mom brain was a thing until I was there. It was like, and I like read stuff, and it really, like, your brain goes like to a different place. It's like crazy. Sure. And because you're like focused on like keeping your baby alive, you can't think about anything else. And so I used to be this super elephant never forgets sharp person, and I just could not keep track of all of the dates and stuff.
Yeah.
So what I was able to do, which the other tools kind of weren't letting me do, was all the things I needed. Recurring posts, because I found them a little spotty on Trello. It was like I needed very specific things, and this let me hack everybody into like their own space inside of one workspace. So when I log in the day, I see every client. It's a different color, but I look at the calendar, and it's everything that has to happen today.
Nice.
Across all of my clients, instead of, you know, this client's on Basecamp, this one's on Trello.
Right.
These 4 are on Asana. Like this one uses a Google sheet. Like instead of having to like go to every one of those places, because VAs are amendable and flexible and, you know, go into your space, right?
Sure.
I moved as many clients as I could into my space, and then I just sort of, you know, I'm on the phone and make my own to-do list as we talk about our plan for the week. So I see everything in one place, and I wake up in the morning, I don't have to think and go search. Because things were like creeping up on me as soon as my brain went mushy. I was not expecting mushy brain. Thing. So it keeps me going. Anyway, that's a long answer and I could talk more about this.
It's a good answer. And now, of course, I'm going to have to go research that more and look at how I can make that work for me if I need to.
Well, you're on Dubsado, right?
Yeah, I love Dubsado. I have Dubsado and Trello, even though I know Dubsado is going to have Trello, or it has Trello cards now. But, you know, I did the whole, I had actually did Asana, doesn't work for me. The user interface just was not what I needed. And I tried a few others. And then finally I went back to Trello, and that was like amazing. And I just, one whole day, I just went in and just created everything I needed. It was fantastic.
It's interesting because Zendu is a lot cleaner, I find, and than Asana, but it operates much the same. And I had a lot of clients that I was like, hey, this is up to you, but I'm moving spaces. Do you want to come with me? Yeah. And the ones that were like really resistant to Asana moved right into a Zendu for some reason. I think having like one space, because they have one project and it's just one long to-do list that we're using. So as you're completing stuff, you know, it at first it might feel a little bit messier, but you should actually be completing stuff. Like, why stuffing it? You know, I think it brought to our attention when things are overdue, because they're not hiding in like sub tasks inside of different projects. You know, it brought things to light. So it actually, I had a lot of clients that were like, man, I really just did not like Asana, because it cleans it up and there's not like, you know, you can't get lost in that, because you can go on like infinitely. Sure. It's a little stressful, I think, in Asana sometimes to figure out where everybody left off. But Dubsado is still on my mind though. I can't jump. Yeah. Every time they do a stinking sale on that lifetime thing, I'm like, I can't jump until I see the project management, because it is my whole thing.
Sure. And how do people find out about you? Or is it just in Facebook groups or referrals, or how does that work?
You know, I figured it out in 2016. I still have this on my plate to talk about how I find people in Facebook groups. And so I counted everybody that filled out my hire form, and they tell me where they heard about me. Nice. 54% of them, 54% in 2016 was Facebook. And, you know, the rest of that overwhelmingly is SEO, just people coming to me. But it is, you know, it is referrals. I think referrals are still my lowest number of leads, but highest quality probably. Yeah. You know.
And you know, that sounds about right. And that's pretty typical. You know, I think what happens a lot of the time is we all fall into this thinking that we have to create these Facebook ads, we have to do the Instagram ads and all these other ad platforms and Google ads and all this stuff, because we just need to get out there and we need to get numbers. But what do those numbers mean if they don't convert, right? And people forget, and I'm guilty of this at times too, we forget that if we just focus on those connecting with the people we already know and the people that are paying attention to us, and get those referrals, then that's still the strongest form of advertising that we can ever do that we didn't pay for. You know, and I think that's something that we just forget, because I guess maybe because the ads on, like, say, Facebook are so cheap that it's like, well, why not spend $5 today and versus waiting for a referral? But it's something that I find very interesting with marketing and not paying attention enough to the referrals and how, you know, I hate to say it, but even sometimes people don't have to have a website. Even though I'm really big on it and you should have your own online space, there are people that have a business that don't have a website because they're too busy with their work from referrals.
Right. I definitely agree with that. I think in general, I sort of lean toward there really are no shoulds, you know, because it can look differently. Because a VA should offer WordPress, but somehow I'm like still here, you know? So apparently not. But yeah, I think it's about doing things on purpose. And when you're like throwing money, the truth is that every dollar that goes out is money that isn't coming home to feed my son. You know, I still am acutely aware of that. So if I'm throwing money at ads that aren't going anywhere, you know, or aren't attracting the right audience because I haven't, you know, niched down enough and thought too much about exactly who I'm going after, that's that is a problem.
Definitely. And when you're working with clients and they're finding you through referrals and through Facebook. Now, are you primarily on Facebook, or are you doing, the whole Instagram, Twitter, and all that? Like, where's your social media platform of choice?
Well, that's a whole nother shoulds. I don't have a Facebook page for my business.
Okay.
And sometimes it's a little awkward because like I'll do a summit, let's say, and they want to link to Facebook and they can't. So recently, last year, I started with a friend and then it became just mine, a Facebook group, and I sort of rebranded it and stuff, and it has a new focus. But I have a Facebook group that I'm in a lot, but for me, I think Instagram works really well because, if I'm trying to tell someone about my coaching packages, the best thing they can see is me living my life with my son.
Sure.
And they can, see that like it totally is possible. And I'm just like a normal person who, takes pictures of my kid doing crazy things. And I just happen to be able to be with him every day, So, so Instagram and Twitter, I think, are the places that, sort of hung out the most in the beginning. In the last year or so, Facebook group, I wanted to, I saw a lot of groups closing down. I saw a lot of, which is a whole other conversation. I saw a lot of groups limiting, kind of the promo posts, which were the big meat of the kids in the beginning. So I just jumped in and thought, all right, well, I'll, add a space to the mix where people can come together and find each other. So right now, I think it's a lot of idea sharing with the type of person that's there, but we'll see where it goes in the future.
Yeah,
and just being a part of the conversation, kind of giving back.
No, definitely. And is there any particular reason why you don't have the Facebook page?
You know what? I would honestly probably say like fear in the beginning, and then it just became what I do. I was really, I don't know if this like isn't, I don't know, this is real talk. I don't know if this is very like PC, but I think I was like, I have a master's degree. I had friends that would make fun of me for the word assistant, like with a master's degree. And so I kind of just like ran my business and like didn't talk about it where people in my real life saw that.
Yeah.
That to me felt really, I just was not ready to have that conversation. I think now I'm at the place where I have some things that would be nice to be able to push in front of, a certain audience and that kind of thing with ads. And I don't have the access to that for my own business. So it's coming, but I honestly think it was just, in the beginning, it was fear as real or shameful or whatever, as that conversation is, it just is what it is. And then it just became, all right, well, I just like don't have time to think about how to leap. And now my mindset is at a place where I would feel comfortable with it, but I just have not, invested the time. So it's just kind of been, I don't do that after a while.
No, and that is perfect. Before I go to my next point, let me ask you also, when you started the business, did you start just by word of mouth, or did you have your website up and running or your Instagram up and running and then go from there?
Oh my gosh, it's so embarrassing. Don't ask me this question. I don't remember where it came from, like which TV show or something, but the thing about the first pancake, or maybe Gilmore Girls, I don't know. You throw out your first pancake because it's always so kind of gross, I don't know why, and I do not know why, but my husband is a musician, and he's like a published composer, like for real. And then he's Teachers Pay Teachers is like an e-commerce shop where teachers just buy each other's lesson plans, basically. And so I had him set up on there. And for some reason, we had this website where like we have the same like initials. So it was like jdesjardins.com. And it was both of us. Like it was like this portfolio site where we each had like a page. I can't even, I don't think I've ever told anyone this. And so that's where I sent people in the beginning. I was making connections in Facebook groups. I got hooked up with like a VA staffing agency in the beginning. That's where I got my first 3 or 4 clients I tried out with them. over the course of probably a year or so, and then I moved on to my own stuff. But when I would meet people, I would send them to like this portfolio page on this random website. And, you know, I mean, hey, it worked out, I guess.
Yeah, that's the thing. That's why I asked, because what's so interesting, again, you know, going back to the shoulds or whatever, you know, it just naturally flows. And while it would be nice to start out right away with your website and blah, 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 you don't have to. And that's the beauty of it. And, you know, the fact that you even had a page to send people to is nice. It doesn't matter how great it is. You at least have something to send them to.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And then it evolved, you know, it became, well, then I had a list of the types of tools I had been learning.
Yep.
And then it became, you know, my husband got the boot and had to go get his own website. So I kept it. You know, and it just sort of expanded and expanded, you know, to then each service had a page, right? It just kind of grew from there. I didn't have a blog in the beginning, so then the blog became, you know, a part of it. The URL changed, but I still technically am on that same site. It's the same Squarespace plan. It's just grown, you know, from there. Man, actually now I wish I could see it.
And that's a beautiful thing. And that's what I wanted to bring up. The point there is that you've evolved over time, and that a website's never done. It's never perfect. That's why I tell clients all the time. I change my website all the time. Just when I think it's nice, I'm like, oh, let me fix this, because I'm constantly...
This is garbage.
Yeah, because I'm constantly thinking about the user experience, and I'm trying to think, okay,
I know. How
can I make this easier for them? Where can I, bring them the information they need without having to go search for it too much, you know?
And then inevitably someone will send me an email and be like, I just have to tell you, I was just on your website and it is gorgeous. I'm like, what? I just told my husband this thing was garbage.
Yep.
Don't say that.
Yeah. And, you know, with the Facebook page too, it's okay if you don't have one. What is nice about it, having one, and this is just, I'm just going to put this out there because I'm on this really big feature of a Facebook page, is that you not only have somewhere to send them, of course, if they're on social, but there's the reviews tab. And I don't know if you've heard me talk about this or seen it, but I think it's one of the strongest features of a Facebook page that people don't utilize enough. And what's beautiful about it is you can turn it on, and it's almost like your mini Yelp, right? You can have people just review, but what's cool about it is it actually gives you a direct URL, a web address that you can then, this is what I've done, add it to your website and say, if you'd like to write a review, click here.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, and then they'll be taken straight to your Facebook page, to the reviews section.
The review section,
where they can write a review. And then the other beautiful thing about that is, if I'm somewhat interested in learning about your services, but I want to see what other people are saying, you could link to that, and that's your social proof. And so what I've done is encourage people to share their reviews over there, because I'll get emails and text messages and things, with the reviews in them. And I'm like, these are awesome, but I want you to be able to post it, because then people can see that they're real and it's not just me making it up.
Yeah. Now let me ask you this, because I see a lot of talk in Facebook groups about what happens when you have the one crazy client who leaves you, I shouldn't say crazy, but somebody that you just can't come to a resolution with.
Yep.
And what happens?
That's a great question, because I actually had that, somebody asked that when I was promoting, the reviews tab. And, to be honest, thankfully I haven't had that yet. Do I anticipate that coming? Of course, because anytime you open up the doors for reviews, doesn't matter how good you are, there's going to be somebody, chances are it's a troll, not somebody you actually have worked with. It will just be one of those online trolls that want to drop in their 2 cents and make it because they think it's funny or whatever. With that being said, that you can report your comments. or any comment on Facebook, but you can report those reviews, and then Facebook is the one that can remove them. So yes, you may have a bad review, but what I always counter with, because again, it goes back to, like you mentioned before, the fear that, you know, of putting it out there or having that there. I mean, we do that with our products, our services, even thinking about starting a business, you know, we always have that fear of, well, what's going to come next, whether it's good or bad. And with the reviews tab, what I like to counter with is, well, yes, there's that fear of having that one bad review, but look at the opposite. How many people are you saying, no, you can't give me the goods. You can't share the change, the impact that I've made on your life and in your business. And when you look at it that way, then it's like, okay, that one bad review, I really don't care, because you know how it went down, if they're a client, of course. And at the same time, most people are smart enough to realize that, especially if there's other reviews on there, that there's times where someone's just ranting because they want to rant, versus this is actually a solid review that I'm going to follow through with, you know. And maybe that's because, and maybe I have that perspective just because I've come from the retail background. I've had the, you know, the surveys and things like that. And, you know, and I've had those customer experiences that it wasn't necessarily from working with me, but because they started with me, I got my name attached to it, and it could have been something that happened with somebody else, you know, back when I was at my 9 to 5. So, you know, it's one of those things that you're always taking a chance, but it's just like business. It's
all a chance.
You know, you could get an email with somebody ranting. Yes, it's not public, but still, you're still going to feel the same way. So,
and it still could be. I mean, because you can respond. I always think about that if I have somebody that's unhappy, which honestly, like you said, is rare, but it happens. It just happens. And the same on Facebook, you can respond publicly. I have seen in one of the big Facebook groups, 80,000 people or something, they were talking, a lot of them are artists, and some of their competitors, like you said, are like leaving fake poor reviews. I find myself, if I'm on Etsy or I'm on Amazon, I personally, as a rule of thumb, go to the 1 stars, read them until I feel comfortable with, okay, none of this is going to be a part of my situation, whatever you're thinking. People will be like, I really, you know, it was smaller than I thought, and the measurements are like right there, you know, that kind of stuff. And then I think, all right, well, I'm satisfied with that, and I don't really care, you know.
Exactly. I do the same with Amazon. I'll look at the 5-star, and then I look at the 1 stars. And it's the same thing. So, you know, and I think that a lot of us do that just naturally, and we just have to be okay with that. You know, if you get a 1 star, oh well, better luck next time. You know, like look at it as what are my strengths and what are my opportunities. And if you read the review and it wasn't that great, but if you read the review and you think, you know what, that situation, there was nothing else I could do. I did my best, and you just keep moving forward, you know?
Yeah, I had a client one time. It's the only time this has ever happened to me, but you know, the relationship had just unraveled, right? There was just nothing more I could do. From the client perspective, like there was a big struggle with professional communication and like still being polite. And it was a client I really wanted to keep, and I just could not. Because we had, you know, middle of the night, like freaking out.
Oh, no.
Like that, you know, like some boundary issues. And they said, if there was a place to publicly review you, I would, and go, you know, and they kind of like threatened.
Oh, geez. Yeah.
Things right. And I was like, so of 4 years, I had this one situation where I knew I had done everything. And I thought, man, I was thinking this conversation, like, what if I had already started a Facebook page, you know? And I'm thinking, well, I would have just said, hey, I'm sorry you're, you know, bummed out. Like, because I didn't leave anything hanging. I finished the project, but their perception was because I finished this portion and I was saying, okay, we're going to have to part ways, that I sent them referral, names to go check out that might have been, that were different personalities from me, but had the same skill set.
Sure.
Their perception was because they would have still used me in the future, I was leaving them, but nothing was undone, so I would have been able to say, I'm glad that we finished this portion of your project and I wish you the best in the rest of the, stuff that you're going to launch. It was not an easy thing for me just because I was sort of holding my ground. It was not something I relished going through at all. So I think, you can respond to them, but not too much. I don't think it takes too many words.
Right.
Review,
exactly.
response.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things that's tough, rare, but tough.
Yep. And like you said, you did all you could. And that's the hard part, especially for people like us who actually care about the customer and are going above and beyond to provide resources to go to the next level. I had a friend that did the same thing recently where she got a full-time job and she had to take it for her health and for her family and everything. And before she did, though, she made sure that all of her current clients from her freelance business were taken care of. She made sure that they had plenty of time, that they were getting to the right people given what they needed. And she still got backlash. And it's like from one that was supposed to be a friend. And it's like, wait a minute, I just went above and beyond for you. And I'm getting my life together and being in a better place so that I'm not always stressed out. And you're upset because I referred you to somebody who can take care of you the way I did. It's tough. I had a similar experience because obviously I've brought up my son a lot. It's a huge part of what I do. I struggled with infertility for several years. I was not well when I was pregnant. My son was in the NICU. He had surgery when he was 10 months old. Like, he's a year and a half now. We're like just starting to kind of breathe and like relax and like, okay, I have this business and this baby and now life is fun. But for halfway through my pregnancy, I was not well. And I worked from bed for the rest of my pregnancy, which I would not have been able to do. And, my family's finances would have looked a lot differently without this business. But, one of the, VA companies that I mentioned where they are subcontracting out to you, I was honest about, I have to pull back on my workload because I'm ill. And, gave all the projects were done, gave all the passwords, all the notes, trained the people that came in, and I'm like trying not to lose this baby I tried to have for like 3 years. Sure.
And the conversation like unraveled, right? And at one point through the conversation, I finally had to say, there is like a person on the other end of the phone. Business is people, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's like a living thing. And this is not, I'm a pretty conscientious person. This is not something that's easy for me to say, like, I can't continue with these projects you've subbed out to me.
Right.
But I'm not well. And, I think it's understanding what is real. Like for me, I was going to do everything I could do to make sure my baby was okay.
Right.
Which is like way more important than like someone's Twitter account.
Yeah.
If we just put everything back into perspective, but I understand what was happening, on their end. It's just it's not an easy thing, but it all like goes back to that Seth Godin thing of like just operating with as much empathy as we can.
Yep.
And for me, what that translated into was sharing the passwords, training the people who came in, giving as much notice as I could, right? That all was a part of what I was trying to do toward empathy. I think if everybody in the situation walks as close we can, toward that empathetic goal, which I think just answered world peace also, probably. That's like the problem in life, is forgetting that there are people and we're all just trying to be people and like make the most out of our 80 years on the planet.
It's so true. And that's the reason why we are trying to do our business right and to help others build their business the way it should be, where you are putting the customer first and you're thinking about the real person behind the name, behind the phone, behind the screen. And, that's all we can do is just keep connecting and sharing.
I think, I had a new client recently signed on this summer from a referral, and social media, content curation. And they were like super happy in the beginning. And then all of a sudden they didn't like how I was interpreting the directives, right? They didn't like what I was sourcing.
Yeah.
And so me writing back and saying, whoa, like, let me, I'm going to fix this. Here's the rationale for why I chose those articles or this thing or whatever, this goal that you said you wanted to share content about this. That's where I was pulling it from. So I explained the rationale, said, I need you to know that this is like a big deal to me. It's as big of a deal to me as it is to you. And we're going to solve this together. It just like diffuses the situation. I think when people hear you say, I care about you, I'm not trying to like mail it in, and just throw stuff up on your Facebook page. I had a rationale behind it, like I said, and it just missed the mark for whatever reason. And still, like a couple years in, I can still not do something so perfectly and interpret their hopes and dreams. But you still are, and now like, it's all solved, right? It was just a couple conversations like, oh yeah, sure, we'll do that instead. Instead of it like unraveling into this thing, you're just remembering that they're people and remembering to say, I care about you. It's just so simple. But
yep.
I don't do it for some reason.
It's so true.
All the time.
Let me ask you, before I let you go, what's one piece of advice you would give someone who's just thinking about starting out or who is still fairly new to entrepreneurship?
Oh boy, I think I have two things that I can't decide which one is more important.
Yeah.
I think I have said a couple times that self-awareness, being honest with yourself, asking other people, like you and I are talking, like finding someone in a Facebook group that you are safe with and can answer honestly to each other. You can look at each other's stuff and look at each other's situations. Because your goal should be to always get better. And so that takes sometimes saying, like I just said, I didn't hit the mark, last month or whatever. And so just that doesn't mean I'm not good at my job.
Right.
Like I think being okay to say that, and that takes practice. That has taken, is that a word? Right? That's a word.
Yeah.
It sounded weird for a second. That has been something I had to practice, is saying, I am still good at my job, but this thing needs to be tightened up. And it's just a continuous process. I think that is big. I think also like it can be done. It really, really can be done. If you are, doing something that you like doing, or at least that you're good at, maybe,
Yep.
Social media management is not your end all passion, but the other things that you do all day that it affords you to do are your passion. And I have to say, when I knew I was never going to work for somebody else again, this is like going to get real heavy, but I have to tell you that my mom's sister had a couple different forms of cancer and she was like terribly sick, and I was working from home. I had left nonprofit sector because I was in like refugee resettlement. It was very emotionally heavy and I needed a little bit of a break. And I was in like a for-profit business, remote work. And my husband and I like moved into my mom's house. Her sister moved in, and I worked, gave her 22 different like medications, every 2 hours, like around the clock. And this remote job allowed me to give her her dying wish, which was to not be in a facility, to be at home with her family. And and I don't mean to be like dramatic, but she's watching like court TV and I'm sitting next to her, she's laying in her bed. I'm in her little, medical chair that stands all the way up, that one of those. I was sitting over there with my laptop, like remoting in, and the company was flexible, eternally grateful for that flexibility, but realizing, okay, how Sheryl Sandberg says, like, what would you do if you weren't afraid? I knew the minute she passed away, like, this can happen, and I can, support my family in these other ways that are not, quantifiable.
Yeah.
To people, that have different measurements than me, because I work part-time. My income is a full-time income on part-time work, but could it be more? Could it be double? Sure. But I'm home with my son. And so some people would say I'm not successful, but I'm incredibly proud of what I've been able to do, because I've had other situations in my family where people have been sick. Like I said, my son was in the NICU, surgery, my mom's had surgery, and I've just, ran a company through those situations. And I am the point person for those situations. To me, there's no higher calling than serving the people around me. So you can do it. You can, and you can do the other things that you really want to be doing. Even though I like storytelling, you can be doing the other things that are higher.
And that, you nailed it right there, because again, I'm the same way, to be honest. I don't want a ton of client work, not because I don't like my clients. I love my clients. I have fantastic people that come to me, and I want to help support them and do more for them. But at the same time, I don't want to be so overworked with doing things that I can't separate my time and have me time, or family time, or friend time, or be able to go off and do free workshops and really engage with people in Facebook groups and help make a difference to a lot more people,
And still empathy, going back to that, being able to serve the people well, like not overbooking yourself so that you're not making promises you can't keep.
Exactly. So it totally makes sense. And that's what I try to remind people, is that you don't want everyone as a client, because one, they're not all going to be the right fit for you. And two, you don't want to be so overbooked that you don't have time to breathe, because once you're down, everything's down.
Yeah, I know it. I know. I am so jazzed by this conversation. I think this is, I haven't really verbalized out loud how much Aunt Lulu, I mean, my family knows how much that means to my business, but I haven't told many people that out loud. I think sometimes we kind of think, like, if we talk too much real, then it's a little dramatic, but, I feel like reminded about why I'm in business. Look at that.
Yes, I love it. And that's what it's all about, having those conversations and just being able to share it, because it's intimidating, especially online, to open up. I think the society's getting better about that, in terms of share your real stories, because people actually want to hear them. But it is very hard to open up, especially if you're in the midst of it, because you don't want to say the wrong thing, and you don't want people to look at you like not the expert, because you're dealing with this problem that technically you're supposed to be helping them fix or whatever. Like, I don't know if that makes sense, but you know what I mean? It's like, it's so hard. And so it's so freeing to be able to just say, listen, I know my stuff, but guess what? This happened, and then blah, blah, blah. And then you get all these comments later that are like, you're a real person. Oh, I thought I was the only one. And then you feel so much better, because you're like, I was so stressed about posting this, but in fact, it's what everyone wanted to hear, because they needed to know they were okay too.
Right. I think sometimes too, I have felt in the past, like, I don't want people to think that I'm using those situations like for gain, right? Because there's nothing to gain. Like, my son had surgery. It is what it is. I don't want people to think I'm manipulating the situation or something. Right. You know what I mean? To kind of like selling out my aunt or whatever. But it just is a part of the story. I think as we surround ourselves with the right people, you are able to do both. Run a business and talk about the real stuff.
Yep, I agree. Thank you so much for tuning in to the podcast. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Dive deeper into the conversation with this guest as well as others by going to yestoentrepreneurship.com/podcast. Over there, you will find a list of all the previous episodes and bonus material for each guest. I hope that you'll continue to share out this podcast, and please be sure to leave a review in iTunes and subscribe so that way others can discover this show and be able to realize they are not alone and that they have somebody they can count on to provide value and motivate and inspire them to keep moving forward. Together, we can make it happen. And like I always say, teamwork equals success. So go out there and do something great, because why not?